What were some of the things you were told about men while growing up?
Don't trust them. Yeah, I agree with that one.
What is the most surprising thing you've learned about men from your experiences?
You can't trust them. Facts.
Do you prefer a man who is a gentleman or a bad boy?
Bad boy. Bad boy.
Is it fair to say women lust after bad boys but want to settle down with nice guys?
Yeah.
If you happen to be looking for a quality man, where would you expect to find one?
Quality man? Church. Yes, that's...
When was the last time you went to church?
That's so good. That's so funny. These women are not living inside reality. They're living inside a story that they were told when they were young that says that men cannot be trusted. And they wholeheartedly believe this story to be true, which is why it's so funny when his Socratic questioning starts pointing to reality. Do you know where the quality men are? Yes, so why don't you go there? You think men can't be trusted, but then why do you go for the bad boys instead of the gentlemen? The women laugh because their bubble burst. The ridiculousness of their story was exposed when reality asserted itself. I'm going to share a depressing truth that you may or may not have figured out yet, which is that very few people live inside reality. And in this video, I'm going to explain the 4 things that block women from seeing reality. These are stories, emotions, ideologies, and faith. Let's start with stories. Imagine you see your life not as descriptions in a scientific textbook, but instead an epic narrative, a tale of heroism. You are the main character of this story, and you have your own unique suffering. You achieve, you struggle. It's like you're playing out some incredible drama. You're living in a story. If that's the way that you see your life, that's going to color your perception of existence. That's going to block you from actually seeing reality. Your awareness is going to be limited to those facts that support your story. You're only going to assign significance to that data that you come across that strengthens your perception of this story. So what kind of a story am I talking about? Well, let's choose a very popular one that women are telling themselves these days, which is that they are victims. When a woman has a victim narrative, she believes that everything is against her and everyone is discriminating against her. And because that's the narrative she's living in, she recreates that story in all kinds of different situations. As she lives her life, she doesn't see reality as it is. She's only seeing those parts of reality that reinforce her story. I heard Konstantin Christen reference this fascinating study where they painted facial scars using like fancy movie makeup on the faces of women just before a job interview. And so women thought that they're going to have this interview and they've got this, deformity on their face. And at the last minute, they get the makeup artist to just like touch it up, whereas actually what they did was completely wiped it off. So their face looks normal. But the women believe that they're going in there with this big facial scar. Afterwards, when they're reporting on what the interview was like, they're all like, I was discriminated against. He kept looking at the scar. He kept making comments about it. Of course, it's all in their head. There was no scar. But you see, the facts of reality get twisted in order to feed this story. When you're lost in victimhood, you only ever interpret facts in such a way that's going to support your narrative. We saw plenty of examples of that in my course. So what happens when a woman has been living in a story over a long period of time is that she sinks further and further into delusion. That is the consequence. When you confront a woman like this with reality, her reaction is always priceless. Let's take a look.
What is your ideal age for your man?
30.
What race is your ideal man?
Black.
Black. Minimum height?
6'3".
Minimum income?
90,000.
90,000? The likelihood of you finding your man is 0.036%.
Her face. To me, that's funny because it demonstrates the distance between a woman's story and reality. Her story is that she's entitled to a man who has this and this and this and this. Her story says that's what she deserves. That's what's coming to her. There's no need to settle or compromise, except that the reality of her finding a man like that is 0.03% or whatever he said. Modern women have an abundance of these stories that are not grounded in reality. Men can't be trusted. Women are morally superior to men. I deserve a top 1% man, whatever the story. It's a massive red flag because if she's running a negative story like men can't be trusted or men are going to cheat on me, you're totally screwed because you can't use reality to rationalize with her. If she truly believes her story wholeheartedly, then the facts that you're presenting, where you're pointing at objective reality, it's not going to count for anything. It doesn't even matter if you prove her wrong because the story reigns supreme. Reality is only useful if it reinforces her story. Otherwise, it's something to be ignored or attacked. That is especially true if she is emotionally invested in that story. And as we'll see, emotions are one of the biggest blocks that women experience to seeing reality. Let's take a look.
Why? Why can't I have that half? Okay, here.
But why did you want to give me that to begin with?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's
But
literally the
why-
same sandwich cut in half.
But why didn't you want to give me that one first?
I don't care which one you want. Here, you want this one? Take it.
No, I want that one now. Blaze!
What one you want now? It's the same fucking sandwich.
Never mind, I don't want anything.
Oh, brother, I feel for you. Okay, let's review the facts of reality. Both halves of the sandwich were identical. If she preferred a certain half, then he was happy to give it to her. You would think, given the reality of the situation, there is no possible way that she could feel discriminated against. There's no chance that she could feel victimized. They're identical choices, and she can choose whichever one she wants. And yet, she found a way, and he can't believe it. It makes no sense to him, but she's done it. She's found a way to feel wronged because she's not looking at reality. She's looking at her emotions. She feels overlooked, neglected, taken advantage of. And because her feelings are telling her that that's what's going on, that's as far as she looks. Let me state this as plainly as I possibly can. Emotions are not an adequate tool for judging reality. The two halves of the sandwich are identical. That is a fact. How you feel about those sandwich halves is completely irrelevant when it comes to determining the truth. Imagine if, when scientists are doing experiments, they just threw out all the data they collected because it doesn't feel like it's correct. Then they would publish results based on what they emotionally felt was the truth. That would be completely ridiculous. If an engineer is constructing a bridge for cars to drive across, I do not want him consulting emotions while making his calculations. I want him consulting reality. But this is not an attack on emotions. No, I'm pro emotions. I'm an emotional guy. I answer questions like this on Hey Hero all the time. If your girlfriend is having emotions, you cannot ignore it. Talk to her about it, comfort her, help her self-regulate, work through these issues. It's a powerful bonding experience. A lot of life's richness comes through our emotional experiences. We laugh, we cry, we get pissed off when we see injustice. That's all good. Emotions are amazing, but emotions are not a tool of cognition. Emotions cannot help you understand reality. So while it's fine to have a girlfriend who is emotional, that's fine, that's beautiful, that's feminine, and hopefully you generate happy and loving emotions inside of her. But it is a big red flag if you're ever dating a woman who says something along the lines of, I feel like this is true, therefore it is. That kind of rationalization is incredibly dangerous, and unfortunately, that emphasis on the supremacy of feeling is what's behind so many women's ideologies, which is another big block to reality. Let's take a look at a couple of women who cannot see reality outside of their ideology.
What are women better at than men?
Did you know that girls have bigger brain than boys? Actually.
Yeah, there's no way that's true.
Yeah, it's actually true.
Scientifically true. What are women better at than men?
Having kids.
What are men better at than women?
Nothing.
Nothing? Can't think of one thing. She just flipped me off as well, what the fuck? What are women better at than men?
Huh?
What are women better at than men?
Everything. Literally, we give birth, we have periods, we literally go through menstruation, we have to deal with men catcalling us, and I'm 15 and I've had men scream at me saying I'm sexy and shit. It's weird.
I wish I had women say I was sexy. I'd like that.
Huh?
I wish women told me I was sexy. I would like that.
Sexy.
Thank you.
I love that guy so much. I find him so funny. But what you're witnessing in those clips is women's inability to see reality because they're so blocked off by their ideology. In particular, the ideology of modern feminism. The nature of an ideology is that you start with a preconceived notion of how things are. And if you are a committed ideologue, then you set about traveling through reality, taking note of all the facts that are going to support that ideology. And of course, you reject or argue against any evidence that undermines it. That's not considered a vice and sin if you're a committed ideologue. No, that kind of practice is being like a brave crusader. And it actually goes even deeper because if you've fully swallowed the Kool-Aid, then it gets to a point where you literally cannot see outside of your ideology. At that point, you cannot even see reality. It's impossible. Taking the modern variant of feminism as our ideological example, if you consider the premises that men are trash, women are morally superior, we live in a patriarchy, women are exploited, men have it easy. When you're speaking to a woman who's completely committed to that ideology, do you see that reality and pointing to reality is going to be completely ineffective at changing her mind? It doesn't matter if you point out that more manual labor is done by men, that men are doing more dangerous jobs, that men commit suicide more, that men are dying in wars, that men are struggling more with loneliness and isolation. It doesn't matter if you show graphs like this that show for decades that women have been outperforming men when it comes to college enrollments, or that after graduating, most employers actively discriminate against men and hire women. Do you see that none of that matters because she's not looking at reality, she's looking at her ideology. Now, again, like emotions, I'm not demonizing all ideologies. They can serve a purpose. Some ideologies challenge your thinking, get you to reconsider your premises. They get you to look at reality in new ways, sometimes more accurate ways. Ideologies can serve a purpose, but if you meet a woman who places adherence to an ideology above her adherence to reality, that is a big red flag. I hope that you understand that reality is not some luxury item, it's an absolute necessity. Reality stands as the arbiter of all disagreements between humans. You think this, I think this. We consult reality to decide who is right. Reality is the ultimate authority, and as such, reality must command your cognitive loyalty above anything else. You need to make sure that your girlfriend understands that, because otherwise, you're going to be lost in an endless sea of pointless arguments and fights. Let's say you do the dishes for an entire week, but then next week she says, you never help out in the kitchen. Now, if she's lost in a story that she's telling herself that she's some domestic slave that's getting exploited by the patriarchy, and she cares more about that story than reality, then you're screwed. Or let's say she's really emotional and she's like, crying and screaming, you never help out in the kitchen. Then again, if she believes that emotions are a valid tool for understanding reality, then you pointing to the facts is not going to help. Or if she's lost in an ideology that says that women are victims and men are exploiters, then again, there's nothing that you can do because you're never going to be able to overcome that ideology by just doing more and more in reality. If that's her belief and she's committed to it, then you'll never be able to do enough. Again, let me state this as plainly as I possibly can so there's no way to misunderstand me. The only way to ever adequately resolve an argument with a woman is if it's resolved with reference to reality. You can listen to her story, you can show compassion to her emotions, and understanding for her ideology. All of that's fine so long as it is within the framework that says that reality reigns supreme. You need to be able to say that the truth is that I do help out in the kitchen. Last week, I did the dishes every single night. That is a fact of reality, and if she's able to hear that, she accepts that reality is the final arbiter of truth, then hold on to her, because even though it seems like the bare minimum, that quality is regrettably rare nowadays. That's true for both men and women. Too few people seem to have the courage to directly look at reality. Now, at the start of this video, I said that I was going to talk about the 4 blocks to reality: stories, emotions, ideologies, and the final one, faith. In my experience, talking about religion on this channel does not go well for me. Despite the very basis of my channel being on the science of evolution, evolutionary biology, and evolutionary psychology, people seem to constantly be surprised that I'm not a Christian. And every time I affirm my atheism on this channel, I get tons of emails the next day with people telling me to give my life over to Christ and like quoting scripture to me. I know that you guys mean well and that you're worried about the salvation of my soul. I get that. But truthfully, it does get a bit tiresome. I'm not here to criticize you if you're religious. Frankly, I'm impressed that you would subscribe to a channel like mine, run by a godless heathen. I'm glad that you still get some value out of my content, even if we're coming from very different places. But I've decided for the YouTube version of this video that I just don't want to poke that bear. But if I'm being intellectually honest, I do believe that faith is something that blocks you from seeing reality. And so I've put all of my thoughts about that topic into the Patreon version of this video. For all of my videos, what you see here on YouTube, this is just a shortened, abridged version. I always put the full versions on Patreon. So if you're curious to know why, from my perspective, faith is a block to seeing reality and why faith is not a tool of cognition for understanding reality, you'll hear my full thoughts on that topic on the Patreon version of this video.